The Dr. Ray Podcast is a co-production of Ave Maria Radio and EWTN Radio. Here's today's monologue with Dr. Ray Guarendi.
When you've been shrinking as long as I have, I've been shrinking over 40 years. Used to be 6'9". You pretty much hear everything. And you pretty much hear everything many times. And there are certain things, for me anyway, that are very difficult to wrap my head around. One I've talked about before in this program, which is people moving toward the very end of their lives and still not paying any attention to the question, is there a God, and what about Christ? They just seem to go to the very end of their existence. I can sort of understand 25-year-olds doing that. They just figure life stretches out in front of them nearly infinitely. But 85-year-olds who don't, boggles my mind. Self-interest would dictate that you would look into this. But there's another one. There's another one I really, as I get older, cannot wrap my head around. That is the idea. And you don't have to be religious to have this idea. That it is a great, indescribable wrong to kill a baby. To kill a child. Now, one might say, well, we don't really know when it's a child now, do we now? Do we know when it's going to be a child? Okay, let's leave it at that. My son said to me once, Dad, I can sort of understand. I don't agree with, but I can understand people who say first couple months of pregnancy, it's not quite as formed as a human being, or if it's really tiny, okay. But he goes, I can't understand someone who thinks it's okay. It would be okay. It is legally permissible to kill that child as it is coming out of the birth canal. A fully formed baby. When I think about it, I have to calm myself down. We look at past cultures who sacrifice children. We make them look like chumps. What we do. And as I look at the Catholic vote, even those who are weekly Mass attenders are sadly split up over the idea of, well, I'm gonna vote this way because, I'm pro-life, but, there's other issues there. I'm not a one-issue voter. Yeah. Huh. If someone said, well, I'm not a one-issue voter, but I perfectly agree that rape is okay, would you vote for him? Of course not. You are a one-issue voter. Depends what the issue is. Just so happens that nationwide permission, nationwide movement toward killing a child as it's being born is a big issue. Now, if you hate the other guy, then don't vote. If you're a Catholic, I've heard priests say this. I've heard priests say, well, it's a seamless garment. There's a lot of other issues, and you got to consider all the other issues. You got to consider climate. You got to consider immigration. You got to consider ageism and racism and sexism and homophobia. You got to consider all that stuff. Yes, and people of goodwill can disagree on how to face and solve that stuff. How is it you can disagree on whether it's okay to kill a baby as it is being born? Dr. Ray, the number of children who are killed as being born is relatively small. It's less than 1%. That doesn't matter. What we're saying is it's okay. Doesn't matter if it happens, how often it happens. It's okay. We call ourselves Catholics. We call ourselves Christians. Now, I know there are those of you listening to me who totally disagree with what I'm saying. And I got to tell you, you boggle my mind. Because how can you say, I am a Christian? Life begins at conception. This has been the teaching of Christianity since the beginning. But yet, in our culture, at our time and place, well, even though I might not think that's okay, I'm gonna vote for people and put them in power that do think it's okay. What? Well, I just can't bring myself to vote the other way. Well, then don't vote at all then. I've heard priests say things like, neither political party really reflects Catholic teaching fully. Well, I agree with that, of course. The question is not neither political. The question is which party conforms closer to some of the Catholic Church's teachings. I'm not about to push my morals on anybody else. I personally believe that sanctity of life is important, but who am I to push my morals upon anybody else? What? This is not pushing morals. This is pushing killing. It's not a matter of morals. It's a matter of social justice. Is it okay to kill another human being? And no one can argue that a baby coming out of the birth canal is not another human being. Dr. Ray, that doesn't happen very often. Well, the stats are it happens less than 1% of the time. That's not the point. The point is we're saying it's okay. If it does happen, it's okay. I cannot wrap my head around this. You don't have to be religious to look at what it is. You don't have to be a traditional faith-filled Catholic to look at what it is. You don't have to be a Christian to look at what it is. There's many denominations out there, especially the more main lines, that say it's a woman's choice. You don't have to be a certain type of Christian to look at this and say, is it okay or is it not? To give someone permission, even though they may not use that permission, to kill a child as it is coming out of the birth canal. You don't want to see pictures of partial birth abortion. I showed this to a Catholic friend once, and I know how she viewed things, and she wouldn't look at it. She said, I don't want to see that. I don't want to see that. Get that away from me. I go, why? Why would you not want to see what you are saying is okay for our culture to legalize? Do I sound hot? You're right, I do. I can't fathom this. I cannot fathom it. The Catholic vote splits 50-50, roughly. I can see that because many of those Catholics have not stepped inside a church, or if they have, they kind of define the Catholic faith as they define it. Okay, I can understand that. But among people who say, no, I'm a faithful Catholic, or among priests even, I know there's priests who vote in a way that does not support pro-life. That's not the only issue. I keep saying that. You're absolutely right. It is not the only issue. But it's one big one. I always use this example. Let's say that I want to own a slave. And the person who I want to own says, yeah, okay, yeah, I'll own that. Let's just try to make that legal so that I have permission. Now, most people wouldn't want to do that, okay, but I would, and maybe some other people would, so why don't we make it legal? Would you say, well, I'm personally against owning a slave, but, who am I to kind of push that on anybody else? No, you wouldn't. Just that's terrible. I got to do that. Exactly. I don't get it. I've heard many I respect, priests I respect, who are holy men, who it boggles my mind that they can think the way they do on this particular aspect. There's many other issues about life and the importance of life and the importance of handling poverty and making sure we welcome the immigrants and making sure we don't kill the world and making sure there's no nuclear war. Yes, those are all things that we need to solve and work at. But I dare say they're not as immediate as right now saying, you have permission to kill a baby. And never before has anyone in our political history based their perspective on this is what we're going to support all the way to the end. This is not a political show. But at the same time, part of me has always said, look at how you think. Don't think in cliches. Don't think what the culture says. Look, this is the way you're supposed to view this. If you disagree with me on this, you call in. Because I want to hear your thinking. I want to hear your rationale. And I will tell you this. Of the many, 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 many people I have talked about with this, I have not heard a convincing rationale. I've heard sound bites. Woman's choice. Woman's decision. Woman's doing with her own body what nobody else could tell her to do. Oh, yeah, they tell her to wear her seatbelt. That's her own body. They tell her you can't put drugs in it. That's her own body. If you go to the doctor and you say, it's my own body, cut my thumb off, would he say, well, it's your body, okay, I don't agree with that, but I'll cut your thumb off? Of course not. So this whole it's my body thing doesn't hold up. None of it holds up. A colleague of mine said, anything can be a justification for what you really want to do anyway.
More of Dr. Ray's Monologues can be found on his website, drray.com. Monologues as well as full-length programs of The Doctor Is In can be heard at AveMariaRadio.net and EWTN.com/radio.